All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the hallway of the Buffalo Bills media room.
It's glamorous, isn't
it's
it?
beautiful here. We've got some weird lighting above us. I'm sorry, we kind of look like we are in a tunnel here, but it's kind of almost like that. We wanted to just come out here quickly and give you some thoughts and answer some questions following the season-ending press conferences. I always equate this. It's like the last day of school, except nobody is excited.
No, not at all.
It's the opposite. Everybody's kind of trying to figure out where the team goes from here. So Brandon Beane talks for an hour and 15 minutes. Sean McDermott talks for an hour after that. So there was a whole lot that was said. Mm-hmm. Give me your kind of bullet point, spark-nosed version of kind of the key takeaways from today.
I think the key takeaway from Beane is that the saying about, you're always going to keep knocking at the door, and eventually good teams knock the door down. Mm-hmm. My bullet point from that is, like, when does the team knock the door down, right? So, like, that was the big point. He's like, I feel like we have the right team there. And, he's going to say, I'm not going to go big into this free agency. We don't know how much money we have to spend there. But in order to knock the door down, you feel like you got to make some sort of splash move. And I know Brandon Beane is not going to give us that kind of insight. Yeah. But I don't know what that move is. And it feels like I'm listening to the same thing that we got last year after this team got knocked out in the divisional round. Yeah. I think when it came to McDermott, my big bullet point takeaway is that I truly do feel that he knew this was the best shot he has had.
Oh, that's Joe Biscaglia from leading the charge.
Hi, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
That I feel like McDermott knew this was the best shot his team had to win the Super Bowl this year, and it didn't. And I think he knew just the chemistry of this team was way different. It's one that he enjoyed, and I think it brought out a side of Sean that we haven't seen in his tenure here. So that one, you feel like it stings for McDermott as much as it probably does for the fans who, again, have to watch this all unfold as we go into another offseason, Matt, of just a lot of questions with a lot of answers needing to be had.
Yeah, I think I kind of always approach this day and try and find a little bit more of the specifics to expand upon. The big picture is that they know they're close, they think they're close, and they think if they keep on doing this, they're going to be able to get to where they're trying to go. But I've heard the same thing kind of over and over and over again, and I'm expecting that to be what they said. There's no chance that they would come out here and say, we're starting over, we need to start from scratch, we need an overhaul. So I understand kind of hey, these are going to be the terms, these are going to be the buzzwords that you hear. I get that. But then there's the specific things that they say about players along the way. And I think this lets you kind of connect the dots of what they are trying to do. Like one of my big takeaways from this game, from this press conference, the day that we just had, was the praise for James Cook. Like, I now think that James Cook is absolutely going to get a contract extension this offseason because they view him as a very key member of their team. You hear the takeaways about Keon Coleman, and that both Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane said they did not think he responded well enough from the injury, and that was ultimately a difference because they had a production and an expectation from him before the injury, and then that goes away. Both of them bringing up how Dalton Kincaid needs to be stronger and more physically durable for the NFL season. Yeah. Like, that's notable, too, for a first-round pick. So I think I take away those kind of specific things and then try and figure out how you can piece them all together to get to some sort of clarity or what this team is going to look like. Mac says, let James Cook. Hi, Matt. Hi, Mac. I think that a lot of people a year ago would have said, hey, James Cook is a nice player, but I don't think he's somebody that we're going to invest a ton of money in.
Oh, absolutely.
And now I'm almost anticipating that guy's going to get $15 million, $20 million a year for a long-term contract because they really count on him.
And I know people that are watching this and fans know this. There's that graph of the 5 guys who are up for extensions who are free agents next season, right? And I always felt like, running backs, you can go find James Cooks in the draft. You can find pieces like that elsewhere. So James Cook was always like my number 5 of the big 5 that were on that list. Within 48 hours, that's all changed. And then I only feel like it's, again, to your point, it's reaffirmed by what Beane and McDermott said there. And when was the last time the Bills have had a running back that they have felt this confident about? It's Fred Jackson, right?
Well, LaShawn McCoy they traded for, so they kind of inherited that contract. So, yeah, it's been a little while. I mean, that comes with having an elite quarterback. They've got Josh Allen. So for long.
Okay, and let's just call it what it is, too. James Cook has a great year, and that his opinion changes from front office and the head coaching staff because the Bills' offensive line had their best year as a unit, too. I think that goes hand in hand with it.
Yeah. Robert, what's up, sports guys? Well, Robert, we're kind of at our end of the year road for all of us and trying to figure out where we go from here.
And end of hallway meeting spot too.
End of hallway meeting spot here. So there is let's see. Robert also says, look at the defensive players from Georgia and Auburn. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the mindset for the Philadelphia Eagles, drafting players from Georgia, and they're in the Super Bowl. That was another kind of big theme from this day is what do you make of the defense? There's going to be Bills fans going back and forth for the next several months, probably the next several years, trying to figure out, is this more the fault of the offense or the defense? I mean, we heard kind of the same thing from both Sean and Brandon today. Like, the defense is just strictly not good enough. Yes. As Jenna walks by here, the defense had a chance to make more plays in the end of the 100%. Season, and they didn't. Really.
And I think it starts right up front, and that's a unit Sean McDermott has said, and he reaffirmed it again today. But McDermott has always said, my defenses that I coach, good defense, it starts with what is up front. Mm-hmm. And it was not good enough. There were flashes, and we talked about Ed Oliver having some good stretches of games, and Daquan Jones coming off a really good season last year. I don't think Daquan Jones, they got production out of him that maybe they saw in last season. Von Miller and Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, moments too inconsistent there too. So while they aren't going to come down, outright, Beane and McDermott are not going to be like, listen, these guys suck. It didn't work out. You're never going to hear that. But I do also feel like there's a little bit of a tone deafness to the fact it's like, hey, I think it's okay if you address the fact being like, yeah, it just was not good enough. And they did. But I also think they should pinpoint a little bit more on the defensive line, because that's an issue where McDermott puts so much emphasis in his defensive game plan and who he is as a coach and what this identity is as a team. And it just was not good enough. You saw that Sunday.
You get away with more at safety, at cornerback, at linebacker when you've got a defensive line that can get home. And the Bills' defensive line has been far too inconsistent. Ed Oliver has flashed, but he has not been somebody who consistently takes over games.
For sure.
Greg Rousseau, the same thing we could say about him, but they needed him in this game, and he did not have a great day. That's why I kind of think priority number one for the Bills this offseason is going to be to go find an established, proven pass rusher and try and add them to their team, because you have the 30th pick. You could just sit there and try and take the best pass rusher available in the draft, and maybe you get another version of Greg Rousseau or a similar level of production, but I don't know if that's enough to be a difference maker for what they are trying to accomplish.
It's also a big gamble because you're the Bills. You're drafting at what, 29th, 30th?
30.
Yeah. So, okay, the Texans a couple years ago get Will Anderson because that worked off a trade that they had, right? But you're not going to find a Will Anderson at pick 30 of the NFL draft.
Yeah, so they got to figure out, if I was them, obviously I have said on social media plenty of times that I would be a big proponent or trying to get Max Crosby from the Raiders or potentially Myles Garrett, although their general manager in Cleveland said they wouldn't trade him no matter what the offer was. I would look into Hendrickson over at the Bengals. I would look into TJ Watt at the Steelers. For some reason, I'm saying a lot of AFC North guys, but just anybody who's available who could immediately come in and make an impact. Obviously, we're rambling a little bit. If you have any questions, fire them off here. We're going to do this for about 10 more minutes before we're going to get back to work, get ready for TV. Any other big takeaways from you from today?
I mean, there's so much was covered. Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, it goes back to the disappointment that I think Beane and McDermott both feel in this instance. And I think that watching Josh Allen, the two of them having to sit there and watch Josh Allen walk off the field disappointed again, his press conference after the game, and then when he spoke to reporters earlier this week at Locker Room Cleanout, I think that re-emphasizes that, you got to start being a little bit more aggressive in whatever shape or form that may be to get over this hump, because you can't keep doing this to your franchise quarterback. I just think it's almost unfair to the point that Josh Allen has to sit here with sad puppy dog eyes after every year after he makes an incredible play. And say what you want about that 4th and 5, Kincaid's got to come up with that catch. He made an unbelievable play that we were talking about with a couple guys back on the cameras with me. 3 guys maybe are able to escape pressure out of the pocket to make that play. It's Josh, Mahomes, and probably Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
But maybe only Allen and Mahomes, are going to get that pass to you 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
I feel like that disappointment should kind of seep over into this offseason and maybe just light even more of a fire if it's not already there with this team.
Jason, hi, Jay. Where we stand now, I said Jason like I didn't know who this was. Hi, Jay. Where we stand now, what's the top need in the draft? I would say there are probably 3 things that the Bills need to address this offseason. They need another pass rusher, they need a wide receiver, and they need a big run step. Well, I was going to say defensive tackle. You could also say corner. Corner will kind of be dependent on what they do with Russell Douglas. If they bring back Russell Douglas, I don't think you would be drafting a corner in the first round. I think you would probably kind of do like a day 3 draft pick. If they don't bring back Russell Douglas, it is the sneaky first first-round option that they have if there is a guy or like just there's some great value there. So that's what I think they'll probably target, but I'm not super convinced they're going to draft in the first round.
Well, last year, I mean, the need was very evident of wide receiver last year too. But I remember there was a lot of mocks where it became very viable that the Bills were going to go after Cooper DeJean after he kind of slid back, and that's where you're going to get some of those top tier cornerbacks as they start sliding back a little bit to where the Bills are. So again, all contingent on Rasul. I feel like you're in a better spot if you hold that late first round pick for a cornerback than, let's just say, taking another gamble on a wide receiver, or you don't really know what a late first round pass rusher is. Again, that's a big gamble. And you need someone, Matt, who, this goes back to your point about the pass rusher and what you need. So I like your take on whether it's Myles Garrett or anybody else, a TJ Watt, Max Crosby. It's because get somebody who's already proven and is already situated in the NFL and has played in these big moments. Gambling on a rookie, it pays off for some teams. Again, look at Will Anderson, but it's not always guaranteed to pay off. And with the Bills' first-round draft history in recent years, you're not safe betting, man, that Brandon Beane and them are going to make the right selection there if it's some sort of pass rusher to make an immediate impact.
Robert, the positive is nobody thought we would go that far. It's funny because, Robert, I think in a couple weeks or maybe even a couple months, we'll look back on this season as, hey, look, the Bills exceeded expectations this year. Going into the year, the very much vibe was like, hey, this is a bit of a reset year. We don't know what the expectations are going to be. There was a lot up in the air. But when you get so close and you kind of, I don't want to say throw away because that's way too harsh, but when you let another opportunity slip by, that's why I think there's so many people who are upset. And that's why I also think this team really needs to figure out a way of getting over the hump because Josh Allen's not getting any younger. He's got a couple more years in his prime. And then after that, they're going to have to try and find different ways to win. Even if he's still the quarterback, maybe he looks like later Phillip Rivers in his career or later Ben Roethlisberger in his later in his career. So they're going to have to figure something out, and I think they've got a 3 to 4 year window now that they absolutely have to attack. It took them 4 years to get to the AFC Championship and then get back to the AFC Championship. It can't be another 4 years.
No.
You got to do it sooner than that, and that's really hard to do in a conference with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. We'll see how it all plays out. Let's see. RRG on X says August is the best month of the year. My assumption is you're saying that because that's when training camp starts. That's when there's hope. That's when everything kind of gets going and rolling again.
That's when we got Matt Collins' bare feet. The barefoot legend was born in August last year.
I also think that this is going to be, I don't want to say a crazy offseason because I don't get that sense at all. I don't think it's going to be like some sort of, hey, because that only happens when you've got a ton of money to spend or if you're trying to kind of start things over. The Bills don't qualify there. But last year, they started the offseason negative $40 million in the hole. This year, they're not even close to that. I think they might be like $3 or $4 million in the hole.
Yeah.
They're going to give Josh Allen a contract extension, so that's going to free up some space. They're probably going to move on from Von Miller. That's going to give them more space. Probably a couple other players that they move on from. So they should have some spending money, and I do think that they will be able to make a couple sizable moves. Like last year, the sizable moves were the guys that they got rid of, not the guys that they brought in.
Right.
I feel like it's going to be different this year.
Do you think, what is the value if you put yourself in Brandon Beane's shoes, making a couple minor splashes compared to, let's say, whatever it takes to go get Myles Garrett?
Yeah, I would rather.
You'd rather take the big splash?
And that goes to FD Territory, who just commented on X about this. Today's message is very demoralizing. No big free agents. Still worrying about the cap. Everything stays in house. What I would say to that is that Brandon Beane said almost the exact same thing 2 months before they gave Von Miller a $120 million contract. So I think that this is him playing a bit coy, trying not to show his hand. Nothing that was said today makes me believe that they will not be big game hunting in some way, shape, or form. He realizes what a lot of us realize, that his quarterback is about to be 29, that there's one team that they can't get by, and that they need to attack this window now. They also have the added luxury of a little bit more draft capital than they've usually had. And I'm talking about that for 2 reasons. The first reason is they've got the second-round pick from the Stephon Diggs trade for last year. And they should be getting 2 fourth-round comp picks from players that they lost. I believe it was Gabe Davis will get them a comp pick, and then I believe the other one was –
is it Poyer? Tremaine?
No, none of those guys got enough money. It might have been Leonard Floyd. It might have been Leonard Floyd.
Okay.
So they're going to have a little bit more. They don't have a third-round pick. They used that for Amari Cooper. But other than that, I do think that they're going to have some flexibility, and there's some things they need to do. One other housekeeping note, Matthew Smiley, the special teams coordinator, will be back. Sean McDermott said yes. He expects him back when specifically asked about him. He was one of the coaches that I feel like some people thought, hey, maybe there is a change there. Surprised by that? I was a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's just like I feel like a good special teams unit is one you don't talk about, right?
Yeah, it's
like,
true. Yeah.
So like, we have to consistently talk about Matthew Smiley in the special teams unit. I mean, that big punt return Sunday was just another shining example. You can talk about Tyler Bass because he had a rocky season, but then he really strung it together in the second half of the season. But you shouldn't be talking about the special teams as a unit and the blunders they have made. I mean, the not reading the fake punt in that Broncos wild card game. I know it's irrelevant because they were up by so much, but like,
well, not at that point. The fake punt when they were, I think it was 7-7 or 7-3.
Really? Oh yeah,
it was super early in the game.
So like again, like we can't be having these conversations, and I don't think that's gonna continue to happen if Matthew Smiley is here. So I'm a little surprised, but I'm also like, this is a unit that like sticks to their guns. They like the people they have in this building. Culture is important, and I think they just like what Matt Smiley brings to them in that point.
All right, so that's kind of a wrap, at least on this part of the season. This is going to be the last thing we talk about for the 2024 season. Next time we hear from these guys will be the NFL Combine. That is in late February. And then after the NFL Combine, free agency begins. The NFL is now 24/7, 365. There doesn't really ever come a time where we're not having these conversations. They're just going to get a little bit more infrequent. So
happy New Year. I guess after the Super Bowl, we don't go by January 1st. We go by the end of the Super Bowl that officially ends in 2020. So in a couple of weeks, happy New Year's, Matt.
And you as well. Any final thoughts as we say goodbye?
No, I think the only thing is just kind of piggybacking a little bit, because you brought up a good point too. Is like, for people who want to think that, the Bills need to start from scratch and refigure it out, you don't do that with teams that are in a realistic Super Bowl window. And as long as Josh Allen is a quarterback, the Bills are always going to have a realistic chance to win the Super Bowl. You don't tear down Rome and try to rebuild it in a day. You just make the Leaning Tower of Pisa that much better, right? Yeah. So like little pieces here and there, and they're going to find ways to have sustained success. They probably have another year in the division where they're going to be able to, contend and be one of the top dogs, if it's just based on this year too. So I wouldn't panic if you don't see the big splash move here. The Bills have Josh Allen at the end of the day, and that's what it all come down to.
My take is that there will be a big splash move. That is my take. There's just kind of me. It's a bit of an educated guess, but I think the last time they had one of these more demoralizing losses after the season was when we saw them go out and make that move.
So they got Von after the 13-second game, right?
13 seconds to beat the Chiefs. And then the next year they lose pretty bad to the Cincinnati Bengals, but it was just kind of a crazy season and so many different things happened. So, I think that we will see some sort of big splash move. But
it'd be cool. We'll be here for it, whenever it happens.
Yeah. All right. We will say goodbye at that point. That is Dom Tibbetts. I'm Matt Beauvais. Bye, guys.